Some nights, one wrong turn changes everything. Tonight, Elara Vance would learn that falling into the wrong man's lap doesn't just change your night. It rewrites your entire existence. The city doesn't forgive weakness. It devours it. And the man whose cold gray eyes would lock onto hers across a blood-red tablecloth? He didn't forgive anything either. He owned the shadows where broken things disappeared, where obsessive exes vanished without trace, where architects with fractured pasts found protection wrapped in violence. Stay until the end. Hit like. Drop your city in the comments. Let's see how far this story travels. The rain hit the pavement like bullets. Elara's breath came in ragged gasps as she pushed through the revolving door of Aurelius, the kind of restaurant where reservations required 3 months' notice and a credit limit most people would never see. Water dripped from her coat onto marble floors worth more than her annual salary. Her heel, the left one, the expensive one she'd bought on credit she couldn't afford, wobbled with each step. Behind her, through the rain-streaked glass, Marcus stood on the sidewalk, watching, always watching. Her ex-boyfriend had the kind of persistence that might have been romantic in another universe. In this one, it was suffocating. 3 restraining orders, 4 police reports, 17 blocked numbers. And still, here he was, soaked to the bone, eyes locked on her like a predator who'd finally cornered his prey. The hostess looked up, her expression shifting from polished professionalism to barely concealed disgust in half a second. Elara knew what she saw. A drenched woman in a department store dress, mascara probably running, desperation radiating off her like cheap perfume. "I need," Elara started. "We're fully booked," the hostess said, her smile sharp enough to cut glass. "Perhaps you'd be more comfortable at—" "I just need to use the restroom." Elara's voice cracked. She hated that, hated the weakness in it. "Please." The hostess's eyes flicked past Elara to the street, where Marcus had pressed himself against the window, hands cupped around his face to peer inside. Something flickered across her features. Not sympathy exactly, more like recognition of a problem that might disturb the other guests. Through the dining room, back left corner. Elara didn't wait for her to change her mind. The restaurant opened up before her like something from a movie she had no business being in. Crystal chandeliers caught the candlelight and scattered it across white tablecloths. The air smelled like money. Expensive wine, truffle oil, the kind of bread that probably cost $20 a basket. Conversation hummed at a volume that suggested no one here had ever needed to raise their voice to be heard. She felt every eye turn toward her as she moved through the space, felt their judgment like a physical weight. The woman in the corner with diamonds at her throat looked away quickly, as if poverty might be contagious. A man in a suit that probably cost more than Elara's car paused mid-sentence, his fork suspended in the air. She walked faster. The heel wobbled harder. Behind her, the hostess's voice rose. "Sir, you can't—" Marcus was inside. Elara's heart kicked against her ribs. She pushed forward, weaving between tables, muttering apologies she didn't mean to people who didn't care. The bathroom was 30 feet away. 20. 15. The heel snapped. The sound was small. Just a crack, really, but it might as well have been a gunshot. Elara's ankle rolled. Her balance went sideways. She reached for the nearest table to catch herself, but her wet fingers slid off the edge. She was falling. Time did that stupid thing it does in moments like this. Stretched and slowed until she could count her own heartbeats, could see the faces of the diners turning toward her, could feel the humiliation rising like bile in her throat. Then she stopped falling. Because someone caught her. Not someone. A man. She'd landed directly in his lap, her hip pressed against his thigh, her hand braced against a chest that felt like it was carved from stone. She looked up, an apology already forming on her lips, and the words died. Gray eyes. Not blue-gray or green-gray, but the color of storm clouds before they opened up and drowned everything below. They looked at her with an intensity that made her forget how to breathe. The rest of his face assembled itself in her vision. Sharp jaw, dark hair swept back from his forehead, a mouth that didn't smile but didn't frown either. Just existed, set in a line that suggested he'd forgotten how to do either. He was beautiful in the way that dangerous things often are. Beautiful, like broken glass. Like a knife edge. Like something you knew better than to touch but couldn't look away from. "I'm sorry," Elara managed. "I didn't mean to—" "Don't." His voice was quiet. deep. The kind of voice that didn't need volume because everyone would shut up and listen anyway. Move. It wasn't a suggestion. She froze. The restaurant had gone silent. Completely silent. The kind of quiet that happens when something is shifted in the air, when people who know better than to stare can't help themselves. Behind her, Marcus's voice cut through the stillness. Elara, we need to talk. She felt the man beneath her, the stranger whose lap she'd fallen into, go very still. Not tense. Stillness was different than tension. Tension suggested effort. This was the stillness of something that had decided not to move yet. A coiled spring, a loaded gun. You know him? The stranger's eyes hadn't left her face. No, I mean... Elara's throat closed. He's my ex. He won't leave me alone. I have restraining orders, but he... Elara. Marcus was closer now. She could smell his cologne, the same one he'd worn when they were together. It used to make her feel safe. Now it made her want to vomit. Come on, stop making a scene. We can talk about this like adults. The stranger moved. One moment Elara was in his lap. The next she was standing beside the table, steadied by a hand on her elbow. The man rose, and Elara realized he was tall. Not just tall, imposing. He wore a black suit that probably cost more than her rent, tailored so precisely it might as well have been painted on. When he stepped around her, moving between her and Marcus, the entire room seemed to reorganize itself around his presence. She's done talking, he said. Marcus laughed. It was high-pitched, nervous. Who the hell are you? Her new boyfriend? That was fast, Elara. Real classy. The stranger didn't respond. He just looked at Marcus. That was all. Just looked. And Marcus went pale. Elara watched it happen, saw the recognition dawn in her ex's eyes, saw his bravado crack like ice over deep water. Marcus took a step back. Then another. I didn't know, Marcus said quickly. I didn't... Mr. Rourke, I swear, I didn't know she was out. The word was barely above a whisper. Two men appeared from nowhere. They wore suits similar to the stranger's, Rourke's, but they moved differently. Like soldiers. Like weapons with legs. They flanked Marcus, one on each side, and when they touched his arms, he didn't resist, didn't fight, just let them guide him toward the door like a child being removed from a birthday party. Marcus looked back once, his eyes finding Elara's. This isn't over, he mouthed. The door closed behind them. The lock clicked. Conversation resumed, but quieter now. More careful. People returned to their food, their wine, their carefully constructed evenings, but the atmosphere had changed. Everyone was aware of the man standing in the center of the room. Everyone was pretending they weren't. Rourke turned back to Elara. Sit. She should have left. Should have grabbed her broken shoe and limped out into the rain and never looked back. Instead, she sat. He sat across from her, gestured to a waiter who appeared instantly, like he'd been waiting for the signal. Water. And whatever the lady wants. I can't afford... Elara started. I didn't ask if you could afford it. His eyes held hers. What do you want? Her mouth went dry. Water's fine. Wine, Rourke said to the waiter. The Bordeaux, 2 glasses. The waiter vanished. Rourke leaned back in his chair, studying her the way someone might study a painting they were considering purchasing. Your ex is an idiot. That's generous. Something that might have been amusement flickered across his face. Restraining orders don't work unless they're enforced. And enforcement requires consequences. Your ex hasn't faced any. The police said, the police deal in paperwork. Rourke's finger traced the stem of his water glass. I deal in solutions. Elara's skin prickled. What kind of solutions? The permanent kind. The wine arrived. The waiter poured with the kind of reverence usually reserved for religious ceremonies. When he left, Rourke lifted his glass. To falling in the right direction. Elara didn't touch her wine. Who are you? You heard your ex say my name. That's not an answer. It's the only one you need tonight. He took a sip, watching her over the rim. Dominic Rourke. I own things. Property, businesses, people's attention. He set the glass down. Your ex knows who I am. That's why he left without a fight. And what are you going to do to him? Nothing he doesn't earn. The words hung between them like smoke. Elara should have been terrified, should have seen the red flags waving so violently they were practically on fire. This man, Dominic Rourke, wasn't offering help. He was offering something darker, something that would cost her in ways she couldn't calculate yet. But when she thought about Marcus waiting outside her apartment at 3 in the morning, thought about the photos he'd left in her mailbox of her walking to work, thought about the feeling of being watched every second of every day. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for getting him out of here." Dominic inclined his head slightly. "You're welcome." They sat in silence for a moment. Elara became aware of her appearance again, the wet dress clinging to her skin, her hair dripping onto her shoulders, the broken shoe under the table. She must look insane, must look exactly like the kind of woman who'd cause a scene in a place like this. "Your heel," Dominic said. "What?" He gestured to her foot. "You broke it when you fell. What size are you?" "I'm not telling you my shoe size." 7.5, he said, like she'd answered anyway. He pulled out his phone, typed something, and set it aside. "Someone will bring you new ones." "I can't accept. You can't walk home in broken heels." His tone suggested the discussion was over. "Unless you enjoy being followed by ex-boyfriends with boundary issues." Elara's jaw tightened. "I don't need you to rescue me. You fell into my lap. I'd say you already did." "That was an accident." "Was it?" He leaned forward slightly, elbows on the table. "Because from where I'm sitting, you walked into this restaurant with no reservation, no money, and a stalker on your heels. You were desperate. And desperation makes people do things they normally wouldn't, like fall into the arms of strangers who can make their problems disappear." Heat flooded Elara's face. "You don't know anything about me. I know you're an architect. I know you work at Morrison and Blake downtown. I know you live alone in a walk-up in the East District. And I know Marcus Holloway has been violating his restraining order for 6 weeks. He said it casually, like he was reading items off a grocery list. Should I continue? The blood drained from Elara's face. How do you... I make it my business to know things. He picked up his wine again, especially when something interesting falls into my lap. I'm not interesting. I'm just lying to yourself? Dominic tilted his head. You're smart, talented. You've designed 3 buildings that won awards you never got credit for because your boss put his name on them. You're also scared, which is understandable given your situation. But you're not weak. Weak people don't run. They fold. Elara's hands were shaking. She pressed them flat against the table. What do you want from me? Nothing. People like you don't help people like me for nothing. People like me? His eyebrow raised. What kind of person do you think I am, Elara? She met his gaze. Dangerous. He smiled. Actually smiled. It transformed his face, made him look almost human. Almost. Good. You're not as naive as you look. A woman approached the table carrying a sleek black box. She set it down beside Elara and left without a word. Elara stared at the box like it might contain a snake. Open it, Dominic said. She did. Inside were heels, black, simple, beautiful, expensive. She lifted one out, felt the weight of it, the quality. These weren't department store shoes. These were the kind of shoes that came from boutiques with locked doors and personal shoppers. I can't accept these. Then leave them here and walk home barefoot. Dominic stood, buttoning his jacket. But Marcus is probably still outside. And he looked upset when he left. Men like him don't like being embarrassed in public. Elara's chest tightened. You're manipulating me. I'm offering you a choice. He pulled a business card from his pocket and set it on the table. The shoes are yours regardless. So is my number. If your ex becomes a problem again, and he will, call me. I'll handle it. Why? Elara stood, gripping the edge of the table. Why would you help me? Dominic looked at her for a long moment. Something moved behind his eyes, something she couldn't read, couldn't name. Then it was gone, replaced by that same controlled blankness. Because you didn't scream when you fell, he said quietly. You apologized. Most people in your situation would have made a scene, played the victim, demanded attention. You just wanted to disappear. He picked up his wine, finished it. I respect that. He walked away before she could respond, moved through the restaurant like he owned it, which, Elara realized suddenly, he probably did. People parted for him without thinking about it, the way crowds part for ambulances. When he reached the door, he paused, looked back. Their eyes met across the room. Then he was gone. Elara sank back into her chair. Her heart was still racing. Her hands were still shaking. She looked down at the business card. Dominic Rourke. No title. No company name. Just a phone number. She should throw it away. Should put on the new shoes and go straight to the police station and file another report about Marcus. Should do everything by the book, the legal way, the safe way. Instead, she slipped the card into her purse. The waiter reappeared. Mr. Rourke has covered your meal. Is there anything else you need? No, thank you. Elara pulled on the new shoes. They fit perfectly. Of course they did. She left through the front door, half expecting Marcus to be waiting. But the street was empty. Just rain and streetlights and the distant sound of traffic. She pulled her coat tighter and started walking. 3 blocks later, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. You made it home yet? She stopped walking, stared at the screen. There was no way he could know her number. She'd never given it to him. But of course he knew it. He knew everything else. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. She should block this number, should delete it, and pretend tonight never happened. Instead, how did you get this number? The response came immediately. Same way I got your shoe size. Are you home? Almost. Text me when you are. Why? The typing indicator appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Because Marcus is parked outside your building. Elara's blood went cold. She looked around, suddenly hyper-aware of every shadow, every sound. No, she whispered. Her phone buzzed again. Don't go home. Give me the address of somewhere safe. She thought about her best friend Sarah, who lived across town. But Sarah had kids. Elara wouldn't bring this mess to her doorstep. Her parents were 2 states away. There was no one else. I don't have anywhere else to go. The phone rang. She answered without thinking. The Meridian Hotel, 4 blocks north. Dominic's voice was calm, steady. Room 2408. The key's waiting at the front desk under your name. I'm not going to a hotel room with you. I'm not there. I'm handling your Marcus problem. Something crashed in the background. A man's voice, not Marcus's, said something she couldn't make out. The room is yours for the night. Tomorrow we'll figure out something more permanent. You can't just... I can. And I am. His voice hardened. Go to the hotel, Elara. Lock the door. Order room service. Get some sleep. We'll talk in the morning. What are you going to do to him? Silence. Then, what needs to be done? The line went dead. Elara stood in the rain, phone pressed to her ear, and realized she'd crossed a line she couldn't uncross. By not going home, by accepting his help, by not calling the police, she'd made a choice. She'd chosen Dominic Rourke over the law. 20 minutes later, she stood in the most expensive hotel room she'd ever seen. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. The bed was the size of her entire apartment. Fresh flowers sat on the dresser. A bottle of wine, probably worth more than her car, waited in an ice bucket. On the nightstand next to the phone sat another business card. Same as before. Just his name and number. She picked it up, turned it over. On the back, in precise handwriting, "You're safe here. Sleep." D. Elara sat on the edge of the bed and finally let herself shake. Let herself feel the fear she'd been holding back since Marcus had appeared in the restaurant window. Let herself acknowledge that everything had changed tonight. She didn't know who Dominic Rourke really was, didn't know what he'd done to Marcus or what it would cost her in the end. But for the first time in 6 weeks, she wasn't afraid to close her eyes. Her phone buzzed one last time. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. I'm sending a car. We need to talk about your living situation. She should say no. Should tell him she could handle this herself. Instead, okay? Elara turned off the lights and lay down in someone else's expensive bed, wearing someone else's expensive shoes, protected by a man whose name made her ex-boyfriend go pale with fear. Outside, the city sprawled in all directions, full of people living their normal lives. People who'd never fallen into the lap of a crime lord. People who'd never had to choose between legal and safe. She closed her eyes. Somewhere in the darkness, Marcus was learning what happened to men who didn't understand no. And Elara was learning what it felt like to be claimed by someone who made problems disappear. The phone on the nightstand rang once. She ignored it. It rang again. On the 3rd ring, she answered, "I thought you said to sleep." Her voice was rough. "I did." Dominic sounded tired. Background noise had faded. Wherever he'd been, whatever he'd been doing, it was done. But I wanted to hear your voice before I let you. Why? To make sure you're okay. I'm in a hotel room you paid for, wearing shoes you bought me, hiding from my ex-boyfriend. Elara laughed, but it came out wrong. Hollow. I'm not sure okay is the right word. Fair enough. A pause. For what it's worth, you won't need to hide much longer. What did you do? Exactly what I said I would. His voice dropped lower. He won't bother you again. I made sure of it. Elara's stomach twisted. Did you? No, he's alive. Bruised, scared, but alive. Dominic exhaled slowly. I don't kill people for stalking, Elara. I just make them understand the consequences of continuing to do so. Marcus understands now. How can you be sure? Because he's leaving the city tonight, and if he's smart, he'll stay gone. The sound of ice clinking against glass came through the line. Get some sleep. The car will be there at 9:45. Dominic, yeah? Thank you. The words felt heavy, dangerous, like saying them meant something she couldn't take back. For tonight. For all of it. Silence stretched between them. When he finally spoke, his voice was different, softer, more human. You fell into my world tonight, Elara, and I don't let go of things that interest me. Another pause. Sleep well. He hung up. Elara set the phone down and stared at the ceiling. Rain pelted against the windows. The city glowed beyond the glass, indifferent to the small dramas playing out in hotel rooms and restaurants and wherever Dominic Rourke had taken Marcus to teach him about consequences. She should be horrified, should be planning her escape, should be gathering evidence to take to the police so they could arrest Dominic for whatever laws he'd broken tonight. Instead, she pulled the covers up to her chin and closed her eyes. For the first time in weeks, she felt safe, and that terrified her more than anything else. Because safety provided by dangerous men always came with a price. Elara just didn't know what hers would be yet, but she knew, with the certainty of someone who'd just stepped off a cliff, that she was about to find out. The last thought she had before sleep took her. What have I done? And somewhere in the city, in a penthouse that overlooked everything, Dominic Rourke poured himself another drink and wondered the exact same thing. The car arrived at 9:45 exactly. Elara watched it pull up from the hotel window, a black sedan with tinted windows that screamed money and discretion in equal measure. The driver stepped out, suited, professional, and scanned the entrance like he was expecting trouble. She'd barely slept. Every time she'd closed her eyes, she saw Marcus's face going pale, saw Dominic's gray eyes studying her like she was a problem he was deciding how to solve. Her phone had been silent all night. No calls from Marcus. No panicked messages. Nothing. That should have been comforting. It wasn't. She grabbed her purse, still had Dominic's business card tucked inside, still had her broken heel wrapped in tissue paper like evidence she couldn't bring herself to throw away, and headed downstairs. The driver opened the door without a word. She slid into leather seats that probably cost more than her monthly rent. The car smelled like expensive cologne and something else, something metallic. She told herself it was just her imagination. They drove in silence. The city scrolled past the windows, people heading to work, kids waiting for school buses, a woman walking her dog. Normal life. The kind Elara used to have before last night, before falling, before Dominic Rourke became a name she couldn't stop thinking about. The car pulled up to a building downtown. Not just any building. The Morrison Tower. 40 stories of glass and steel, home to law firms and investment banks and companies that moved money in amounts Elara couldn't comprehend. The driver led her through a private entrance, past security that nodded like they'd been expecting her, into an elevator that required a key card to access the top floors. Penthouse, the driver said. First words he'd spoken. Of course it is, Elara muttered. The elevator moved so smoothly she barely felt it. Numbers climbed. 30, 35, 40. Then one more. A floor that didn't have a number, just a letter. P. The doors opened directly into an apartment. No, not an apartment. Apartments had walls and doors and boundaries between spaces. This was something else entirely. The entire floor was one massive open space, living room flowing into dining area, flowing into kitchen, all of it framed by floor-to-ceiling windows that made the city look like a toy model spread out below. The furniture was minimal, expensive, chosen by someone who understood that true luxury didn't need to announce itself. Dominic stood by the windows, phone pressed to his ear. He held up one finger, wait, and continued his conversation. I don't care what he thinks he's owed. He had his chance to pay. His voice was calm, terrifyingly calm. You have 48 hours to collect. After that, it's no longer a negotiation. He listened for a moment. Then make sure he understands that refusing to negotiate has consequences he won't enjoy. He ended the call and turned to face her. In daylight, he was somehow worse. The restaurant had been dim, romantic, easy to pretend he was just another wealthy man with good taste. Here, with sunlight cutting across his features, there was no pretending. The sharp angles of his face, the way he held himself, too still, too controlled, the expensive watch that probably cost more than her car. This was a man who owned things, people, outcomes. You slept, he said. Not a question, an observation. Some. Elara stayed near the elevator. Your driver didn't give me much choice about coming here. Would you have come if I'd asked nicely? No. Then I saved us both some time. He gestured to the kitchen island where coffee waited in a French press, 2 cups already set out. Breakfast? I'm not hungry. You're lying. He poured coffee anyway, added cream to 1 cup without asking if she took it. You didn't eat dinner last night. Probably haven't eaten since lunch yesterday. Sit. Elara's jaw tightened. I'm not a dog. Then stop acting like you're about to bolt. He slid the cup across the counter toward an empty stool. We need to talk. That requires you to be calm enough to listen. I am calm. Your hands are shaking. She looked down. He was right. She shoved them in her pockets. What did you do to Marcus? Exactly what needed to be done. Dominic took a sip of his coffee, watching her over the rim. He's on a bus to Chicago. He won't be back. You can't know that. I can. Because I made it very clear what would happen if he returned. He set the cup down. He believed me. Elara's stomach twisted. Did you hurt him? Define hurt. You know what I mean. I had a conversation with him. Explained the situation in terms he could understand. Showed him evidence of what happens to men who ignore my explanations. Dominic's expression didn't change. He's bruised, scared, but intact. More than he deserved, considering what he put you through. You had no right. I had every right. His voice went sharp. He violated a restraining order, stalked you, made you afraid to go home. The legal system failed you. Someone needed to step in. That someone didn't need to be you. Who else? Dominic leaned against the counter. Your friends, your family, the police who've done nothing for 6 weeks? He paused. You fell into my lap last night, Elara, literally, and I don't ignore things that land in my world. I'm not a thing. No. You're a problem that became my responsibility the moment your ex walked into my restaurant. He picked up his coffee again, and I handle my responsibilities. Elara wanted to argue, wanted to tell him she didn't need handling, didn't need protecting, didn't need a crime lord because that's what he was. She could see it now in the way he talked about consequences and negotiations, inserting himself into her life. But the truth was sitting heavy in her chest. For the first time in weeks, she'd slept through the night. Hadn't woken up to check the locks, hadn't jumped at every sound. Marcus was gone because Dominic had made him gone. She hated that it worked, hated that she felt grateful. What do you want from me? She asked quietly. I already told you, nothing. People like you always want something. People like me. Dominic set his cup down with precision. You keep saying that. What kind of person do you think I am? The kind who makes people disappear when they become inconvenient. Marcus isn't disappeared, he's relocated. There's a difference. He moved around the counter, closing the distance between them. Not threatening, just present. But yes, I'm the kind of person who solves problems, who makes decisions that other people are too afraid or too weak to make, who operates outside the boundaries of what's legal because legal doesn't always mean right. That's not your call to make. It is when the person who needs help can't make it themselves. He stopped a few feet away. You could have gone to the police last night. Could have filed another report, gotten another piece of paper that Marcus would have ignored. Instead, you ran into my restaurant, fell into my lap. Let me send you to a hotel, answered my calls. Got in my car this morning. His eyes held hers. Every step of the way, you chose me over the alternative. So don't pretend you didn't know what you were doing. Heat flooded Elara's face. I didn't have a choice. Everyone has choices. You made yours. He turned away, moved to the windows. Your apartment isn't safe anymore. Marcus knows where you live. Even if he's gone, other people know where you are. Stalkers talk, share information. You need somewhere else. I can't afford. I'm not asking you to afford anything. Dominic pulled out his phone, tapped something, and set it on the counter. I own a building in the West District. Secure entrance, doorman, cameras. Top floor apartment just became available. It's yours if you want it. Elara stared at him. I can't accept that. Why not? Because I don't know what it costs. Nothing. Everything has a cost. Dominic turned to face her fully. You're right, it does. Here's mine. I want to know you're safe. I want to know that if Marcus or anyone else tries to hurt you, they have to go through security, cameras, and a door that locks from the inside. I want to sleep at night knowing you're not lying awake checking the windows. He paused. That's what it costs. Your safety for my peace of mind. Why do you care? I don't know yet. The honesty in his voice caught her off guard. But I do. And I stopped questioning why I care about things a long time ago. Saves time. Elara's phone buzzed. She pulled it out, saw Sarah's name. 3 missed calls. She'd forgotten to text her best friend back last night. Sarah probably thought she was dead. Take it, Dominic said. She answered. Sarah, where the hell are you? Sarah's voice was sharp with worry. I came by your place this morning. You weren't there. Your car's still in the lot. I called the police. I called hospitals. I'm fine. I'm sorry. I should have called. You should have done more than call. What happened? Where are you? Elara looked at Dominic. He watched her with that same unreadable expression. I'm downtown. Something happened last night with Marcus. I'm handling it. What do you mean handling it? Did he hurt you? I swear if that bastard touched you, he didn't. Someone helped me. The words felt strange. I'm safe. I promise. Sarah went quiet. When she spoke again, her voice was different, careful. What kind of help? The effective kind. Elara, what did you do? Nothing illegal. Technically true. She hadn't done anything. Dominic had. I met someone who could make Marcus leave me alone. And he did. He. Sarah's tone went flat. You met a he who could make your stalker ex-boyfriend disappear in one night, and you think that's fine. I didn't say it was fine. I said I'm safe. Those aren't the same thing. A pause. Where are you right now? Elara looked around the penthouse, at the city spread below like Dominic owned it, at the man himself, still watching her with eyes that missed nothing. I can't tell you that. Jesus Christ, Elara. I'll call you later, I promise. She hung up before Sarah could argue. Dominic raised an eyebrow. Went well. She thinks I've lost my mind. Have you? Elara laughed. It came out bitter. Probably. I'm standing in a penthouse with a man I met 12 hours ago discussing moving into an apartment he owns after he made my ex-boyfriend leave the city through means I'm afraid to ask about. So yeah, I'd say my grip on sanity is pretty questionable right now. Sanity is overrated. Dominic moved back to the counter, picked up a tablet, and turned it to face her. This is the apartment. Take a look. She shouldn't. Should walk out right now, go to her own place, pack her things, and disappear somewhere Dominic Rourke couldn't find her. Instead, she looked. The apartment was beautiful. Modern, clean, safe. Big windows, but not floor to ceiling. Actual walls. A kitchen that looked functional instead of showpiece. Bedroom with blackout curtains. Bathroom with a lock on the door. It looked like somewhere she could breathe. When can I see it? The words were out before she could stop them. Something that might have been satisfaction crossed Dominic's face. Now, if you want, driver can take us. I need to get some things from my place first. Already done. He gestured to the corner where 2 suitcases sat. Her suitcases. I had someone pack your essentials this morning. Clothes, toiletries, laptop. The rest can be moved later. Elara's blood went cold. You sent people into my apartment? You weren't using it, and you needed your things. He said it like it was reasonable. Like having strangers go through her belongings while she slept in a hotel was perfectly normal. Everything's there. You can check. She wanted to scream, wanted to tell him he'd crossed a line, violated her privacy, proved that Sarah was right about him being dangerous. But the suitcases were her suitcases. Her things were in them. And the alternative was going back to her apartment herself, alone, to pack while wondering if Marcus had left anything behind, wondering if he'd been inside. Touched her things. Waited for her. You had no right, she said quietly. I had no permission, Dominic corrected. Rights are different. You needed help. I provided it. He moved to the elevator, pressed the button. You can be angry about it in the new apartment. At least there you'll be safe while you're pissed at me. The elevator opened. He gestured for her to enter. Elara stood frozen. This was the moment. The choice. Get in the elevator and let Dominic Rourke reorganize her entire life, or walk away and handle things herself the way she should have from the beginning. Her phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. You think you're safe with him? You're not. He'll ruin you. M. Marcus. Still had her number, still watching, still out there. Elara looked at Dominic. He texted me. Dominic's expression went very still. Show me. She held out her phone. He read the message, his jaw tightening incrementally. Then he made a call. Someone answered immediately. Marcus Holloway just made contact. I thought I was clear about what would happen if he did. His voice was ice. Find him. Now. He listened. I don't care if he's on a bus. Get him off it. Bring him somewhere quiet. I'll handle the rest personally. He ended the call and looked at Elara. He won't text you again. What are you going to do? What I should have done last night. He stepped into the elevator. Are you coming or not? Elara picked up one of the suitcases and followed him inside. The new apartment was everything the photos promised. Clean, secure, empty enough to feel like a blank slate instead of a prison. The doorman, a solid man named Frank who looked like he'd done time in the military, greeted them with a nod that suggested he knew exactly who Dominic was and what kind of building this was. Ms. Vance, Frank said, your keys. And this. He handed her a panic button on a keychain. Press it. I come running. So does building security. So does Mr. Rourke's people. Elara took the keychain. Mr. Rourke's people. I'm paying Frank's salary, Dominic said. Among others. This building is secure because I make it secure. That includes you now. They rode the elevator to the top floor. The apartment opened up before her, exactly like the photos, but somehow better. Real. Hers. Even though she hadn't signed anything, hadn't paid anything, hadn't earned it. Dominic set her suitcases by the door. I'll have the rest of your things moved by tomorrow. Any furniture you want to keep, let me know. Otherwise, I'll have this place furnished by the weekend. I can furnish my own apartment. With what money? He wasn't being cruel, just factual. You're 3 months behind on rent at your old place. Credit cards are maxed. Savings account has $200. You spent your last discretionary income on the heels you were wearing last night. Elara's face burned. How do you? I know everything about you, Elara. Your credit score, your work history, how much you make versus how much you spend. The restraining orders against Marcus. The complaints you filed with HR about your boss taking credit for your designs. He moved to the window. I know you're drowning, and I'm offering you a life raft. Why? Her voice cracked. Why me? You don't even know me. I know enough. He turned to face her. You're talented. You're scared. You're one bad month away from losing everything, and you remind me of someone. Who? Someone who needed help and didn't get it. His expression shuddered. I'm not making that mistake twice. Before Elara could respond, his phone rang. He answered, listened, and his entire demeanor changed. Went cold, lethal. Where? A pause. Good. Don't let him leave. I'm on my way. He hung up and looked at Elara. I have to go. Marcus? They found him. 20 miles outside the city, trying to buy a burner phone. Dominic headed for the door. Stay here. Lock the door. Don't answer it for anyone except Frank or me. What are you going to do to him? He stopped at the threshold. Make sure he understands that second chances don't come with third warnings. Dominic, stay here, Elara. His eyes met hers. Please. Then he was gone. Elara stood in the empty apartment and tried to process everything. The apartment, the security, the suitcases packed by strangers, Dominic's people finding Marcus in less than 2 hours. The way Dominic had said please, like the word cost him something. She moved to the window and looked out at the city. Somewhere out there, Marcus was learning what happened when you ignored Dominic Rourke's warnings. And Elara was standing in an apartment she hadn't earned, protected by a man she barely knew, wondering when the cost of all this safety would come due. Her phone rang. Sarah again. I'm fine, Elara said immediately. Are you? Sarah's voice was tight. Because I just got a very interesting call from your landlord. Said some men came this morning, packed up your things, and told him you were moving out, paid your back rent in cash, and left. Want to explain that? Elara closed her eyes. It's complicated. Uncomplicate it. I can't. Elara, listen to me. I've known you for 10 years. I've never heard you sound like this. Scared, but not scared. Like you've given up on something, but won't admit it. Sarah took a breath. Who is he? Someone who helps people. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have right now. Elara turned away from the window. I need you to trust me. I do trust you. That's why I'm worried. A pause. Just be careful. Men who can make problems disappear that fast, they're usually the biggest problem of all. After Sarah hung up, Elara sat on the floor of her empty apartment and let herself feel everything she'd been pushing down. Fear, gratitude, shame, relief, confusion. She didn't know who Dominic Rourke really was. Didn't know what he'd done to Marcus or what he was doing to him right now. Didn't know why he'd chosen to help her or what he'd want in return. But she knew she felt safe for the first time in months, and she knew that made her complicit in whatever happened next. 3 hours later, her phone buzzed. Dominic. It's handled. He won't contact you again. Ever. Elara stared at the message. 2 words stood out. Won't. Ever. She typed, What does that mean? The response came fast. It means you can sleep tonight without checking the locks. That's not what I asked. I know. She waited. No follow-up came. Her hands were shaking again. She set the phone down and walked to the kitchen, found a glass, filled it with water she didn't drink, poured it out, filled it again. The apartment was too quiet, too empty, too much like a cage disguised as safety. She grabbed her keys and headed for the door. Frank looked up when she emerged from the elevator. Everything okay, Ms. Vance? I need some air. Mr. Rourke said you should stay inside. Mr. Rourke doesn't own me. The words came out sharper than intended. Frank's expression didn't change. No, ma'am. But he does own this building, and he pays me to keep you safe, which means I'm going to ask where you're going and suggest you take one of our security people with you. Elara's jaw tightened. I'm going for a walk. Alone. Can't let you do that. You can't stop me. Actually, I can. Mr. Rourke's orders. Frank stood. But I'd rather not. So how about this? You tell me where you want to go, I call a car, and Marcus, one of our drivers, takes you there and waits. You get your air. I keep my job. Everyone wins. Elara wanted to argue, wanted to storm past him and prove she still had control over her own life. But she'd seen what Dominic did to people who didn't listen to his suggestions. Fine. 20 minutes later, she was in another black sedan, driven by another silent man in a suit, heading toward the only place that still felt like hers, the small coffee shop 3 blocks from her old apartment, where she used to spend Sunday mornings sketching building designs and pretending her life was going somewhere. The shop was exactly as she remembered. Mismatched furniture, art on the walls from local painters, the smell of coffee beans and cinnamon. She ordered a latte and found her usual corner table. For 10 minutes, she was just Elara. Not someone being protected or monitored or moved around like a chess piece. Just a woman drinking coffee and watching people live their normal lives. Then Dominic slid into the chair across from her. She jumped, sloshing coffee onto the table. How did you... Your driver called me. He gestured to the window where the sedan waited. Protocol. You leave the building, I get notified. That's insane. That's safety. He flagged down the barista, ordered a black coffee. You shouldn't have left the apartment. I needed to think. About what? About what you did to Marcus. about what it means that I'm okay with it, about how fast my entire life has been rearranged by someone I don't even know. She met his eyes. About who you really are. The barista brought his coffee. Dominic added nothing to it, just lifted the cup and drank. What do you want to know? Everything. That's a long conversation. I've got time. You apparently control my schedule now anyway. His mouth almost smiled. You're angry. I'm confused. There's a difference. Elara leaned forward. Yesterday morning, I was an architect with a stalker ex-boyfriend in a shitty apartment. Today, I'm living in a luxury building, protected by armed security, and the man who made it all happen won't tell me what he does for a living or why he's helping me. I told you. You interested me. That's not enough. It is for me. He set his cup down. But if you want more, I run a business. Import, export, investments. Some of it's legal. Most of it walks the line. I employ people who need employment. I solve problems that the legal system can't or won't touch, and I make sure the people under my protection stay protected. By any means necessary. Yes. Including violence. When required. And Marcus? Dominic's expression went flat. Marcus learned that there are consequences for texting women I've told him to leave alone. What kind of consequences? The kind that ensure he'll never make that mistake again. He paused. He's alive, intact, but scared enough that the thought of contacting you will make him physically ill for the rest of his life. Elara's stomach turned. You can't just... I can. And I did. Dominic leaned back. He had multiple restraining orders. He violated all of them. He stalked you, terrorized you, made you afraid to live your own life. The police did nothing. Your friends did nothing. Your family is too far away to help, so I did what needed to be done. That's not your decision to make. You're right. It was yours. And you made it when you got in my car this morning, when you accepted the apartment, when you didn't call the police after I took Marcus the first time. His eyes held hers. Every step of the way, you chose this. So don't pretend you're the victim here. You knew what I was. You know what I am. And you're still sitting across from me drinking coffee instead of running. Heat flooded her face. You manipulated me. I offered you options. You took the one that kept you safe. He finished his coffee. There's no manipulation in that. Just reality. Reality where you control everything. Reality where you're not afraid anymore. He stood. You can hate me for how I did it, but you can't deny it worked. He was right. She did hate him a little. Hated how easily he'd slipped into her life and rearranged it. Hated that she was grateful. Hated that sitting here, watching him, she didn't feel afraid. She felt something else entirely. I don't know how to do this, she said quietly. Do what? Accept help from someone like you. Someone like me. He pulled out his wallet, dropped cash on the table. You keep saying that, like I'm some kind of monster. Aren't you? He looked at her for a long moment. Probably, but I'm a monster who makes sure you can sleep at night. That has to count for something. He walked out. Elara sat there, coffee going cold, and tried to figure out when she'd stopped being afraid of him and started being drawn to him instead. The answer came faster than she wanted to admit. She'd made that choice the moment she'd fallen into his lap. Everything since then was just her catching up to what she'd already decided. She finished her coffee and walked out to the waiting car. The driver opened the door without comment. She climbed in and didn't protest when he drove her back to the building where Frank waited, where her new apartment sat empty and safe, where Dominic Rourke had built her a life she hadn't asked for but couldn't quite bring herself to reject. That night she unpacked her suitcases, found everything exactly where she would have packed it herself. Clothes folded the way she folded them. Toiletries organized the same way. Whoever Dominic had sent to her apartment had paid attention, had cared enough to do it right. That felt more invasive than anything else. Her phone buzzed. Dominic. You settling in okay? She stared at the message, could ignore it, could tell him to leave her alone, could block the number and pretend none of this had happened. Instead, yes. Good. Sleep well. She set the phone down and looked around the empty apartment. Tomorrow, Dominic had said, he'd have furniture delivered. Would fill this space with things he'd chosen, would continue building a life for her that she hadn't designed. She should hate that, should fight it, should prove she was still in control of her own choices. But when she finally climbed into the bed that had been delivered that afternoon, expensive sheets, perfect mattress, everything chosen to be exactly what someone like her would need, she realized the truth. She didn't want to fight it. She wanted to surrender to it, wanted to let Dominic Rourke be the dangerous, controlling, impossible man who made her problems disappear and her life make sense again. And that terrified her more than Marcus ever had. Because Marcus had threatened her safety. Dominic threatened something deeper. He threatened to make her need him. And in a city that didn't forgive weakness, needing someone like Dominic Rourke was the most dangerous thing she could do. She closed her eyes and tried to sleep. Failed. At 2 in the morning, her phone rang. "You're not sleeping," Dominic said when she answered. "Neither are you." "I don't sleep much." A pause. "What's wrong?" "Nothing." "You're a terrible liar." Elara sat up, pulled her knees to her chest. "I don't know how to do this. Any of this. I don't know how to accept help from someone who scares me. I don't know how to live in an apartment I didn't earn. I don't know how to feel safe knowing it's because you hurt someone on my behalf. You're overthinking it. I'm trying to understand it." "There's nothing to understand. You needed help. I provided it. That's all." "It's not all. You're not—" She stopped, tried again. "People don't just help for no reason. Especially not people like you." "There you go again. People like me." His voice went softer. "What if I told you I'm helping because I want to? Because watching you walk through that restaurant, terrified and trying not to show it, reminded me what it's like to need help and not have anyone offer it?" "I'd say that doesn't make sense." "Most things don't." She heard ice clink. He was drinking. "Go to sleep, Elara." "Why did you really call?" Silence stretched. Then, "Because I wanted to hear your voice." The honesty in it broke something loose in her chest. "Dominic." "Sleep. I'll check on you tomorrow." He hung up. Elara lay back down, heart pounding, and realized she'd crossed another line tonight, not by accepting the apartment or the security or the help, by wanting to hear his voice too. By 3 in the morning, she finally slept, and dreamed of gray eyes watching her from across a restaurant, across a city, across a distance that was shrinking faster than she could outrun it. When she woke the next morning, furniture had appeared in her apartment while she slept. A couch, a dining table, lamps, bookshelves. Everything tasteful, expensive, and exactly what she would have chosen herself if she'd had the money. On the counter sat a note in that same precise handwriting. "You need somewhere to work. Second bedroom is set up as an office. I took the liberty. D." She walked to the second bedroom and found a drafting table, professional-grade chair, drawing supplies, and a computer system that probably cost more than she made in 6 months. Her hands were shaking again. Not from fear this time. From the realization that Dominic Rourke wasn't just protecting her. He was building her a life, and she was letting him. Her phone buzzed. "Dominic." "Office okay?" Elara looked around the room, at the setup that showed he'd been paying attention to more than just her safety. He'd noticed what she did, what she needed, what would make her feel like herself again. She typed, "It's perfect." "Good. I'll pick you up at 7. Dinner." "I didn't agree to dinner. You didn't disagree either." She almost smiled. "Is that how this works? You just decide things and I go along?" "So far it's been working out okay. For you, maybe. For both of us." "See you at 7. Elara set her phone down and looked at the drafting table. At the life Dominic was constructing around her. At the choice she'd already made without admitting it. She could say no to dinner, could establish boundaries, could prove she still had control. But control was an illusion now. Had been since the moment her heel snapped and she'd fallen into the arms of the most dangerous man in the city. At 7, she was ready. Wearing a dress that had appeared in her closet that afternoon, her size, her style, expensive enough to belong in Dominic's world. When the knock came, she opened the door. Dominic stood in the hallway, suit perfectly tailored, gray eyes taking her in like he was cataloging every detail. "You look like someone you dressed." His mouth curved, actually curved. "I gave suggestions. You made choices." "Did I?" "You answered the door. That was a choice." He offered his arm. "Ready?" Elara looked at him. At the man who'd reorganized her entire existence in 48 hours, who'd made her stalker disappear, who'd built her an office and filled her closet and called in the middle of the night just to hear her voice. This was the moment, the real one. Not the apartment or the security or the furniture. This was where she decided whether to step fully into Dominic Rourke's world or turn back while she still could. She took his arm. "Let's go." And somewhere in the city, in places she couldn't see, Dominic's empire shifted to accommodate the newest person under his protection. The woman who'd fallen into his lap and somehow fallen into something far more dangerous. A life she hadn't chosen but couldn't walk away from. A man she didn't understand but couldn't stop wanting to know. And a future that was barreling toward her with the inevitability of a train she'd stepped in front of deliberately, knowing it would either carry her somewhere new or destroy her completely. The point of no return wasn't the apartment, wasn't the security, wasn't even the way Marcus had disappeared. It was the moment she'd decided she wanted Dominic to keep calling her in the middle of the night, wanted him to keep rearranging her world, wanted him. And as the elevator descended, carrying her toward whatever dinner and Dominic Rourke had planned, Elara realized the terrifying truth. She'd already fallen. The question was whether he'd catch her this time, or let her shatter. The restaurant was different this time. Not Aurelius with its crystal chandeliers and hushed conversations. This place existed in the shadows between buildings, down an alley that didn't look like it led anywhere, through a door with no sign and no windows. The kind of place you only found if someone wanted you to find it. Dominic's hand rested on the small of Elara's back as they descended stairs that smelled like aged wine and old money. At the bottom, a room opened up. Low ceilings, exposed brick, tables scattered like someone had thrown them, and they'd landed in accidental arrangement. The lighting was dim enough that faces became suggestions rather than facts. Every person in the room looked up when Dominic entered, then looked away quickly. "You bring me to all the romantic spots," Elara said quietly. "This isn't romance. This is trust." Dominic guided her to a corner table, the only one that offered a view of both the entrance and the kitchen. "I don't bring people here unless I trust them." "You've known me 3 days." "I've known you long enough." He pulled out her chair, waited until she sat. "And I needed somewhere we could talk without being interrupted." A waiter appeared, older, weathered, with scars on his knuckles that suggested his history involved more than carrying plates. He set down 2 glasses of wine without asking what they wanted. "Vincent," Dominic said. "How's your daughter?" "Stanford, full scholarship, thanks to you." Vincent's voice was gravel and gratitude mixed together. "She starts in the fall." "Good, she earned it." Dominic gestured dismissively. "We'll eat whatever Maria made tonight." Vincent nodded and disappeared into the kitchen. Elara picked up her wine glass but didn't drink. "You paid for that girl's college." "I invested in potential." Dominic tasted his wine, approved, and set it down. "Vincent works for me. Has for 15 years. His daughter is brilliant. Brilliant people should have opportunities. I provided one." "How many people work for you?" "Depends on the day. Directly? Maybe 200. Indirectly? More than I can count." He leaned back. "Some handle legitimate businesses. Others handle less legitimate ones. All of them understand that loyalty is rewarded and betrayal is punished. With violence, when necessary." He didn't flinch from it. "I'm not going to lie to you about what I am, Elara. I run an organization that operates outside legal boundaries. I move money, merchandise, and influence. I protect the people who work for me and destroy the people who threaten them. That's what I do. That's who I am." Food arrived. Pasta that smelled like heaven. Bread still warm from the oven. Vegetables that looked like they'd been picked that morning. Maria herself brought the plates, a woman in her 60s with flour on her apron and warmth in her eyes. "Dominic," she said, kissing both his cheeks, "too long since you visited." "I've been busy." "Too busy to eat?" She looked at Elara, assessed her in 3 seconds, and smiled. "You brought a girl, finally." "Maria. She's too skinny. You're not feeding her enough." Maria squeezed Elara's shoulder. "Eat, both of you. I made the carbonara you love." She swept away before Dominic could protest. Elara picked up her fork. "She thinks I'm your girlfriend. Let her think what she wants. Is that what this is? Dinner with your girlfriend?" Dominic met her eyes across the table. I don't know what this is yet. Do you? Elara looked down at her plate, twirled pasta around her fork without eating it. You scare me. I know. But I don't want to leave. I know that too. He started eating. So stop fighting it and eat Maria's carbonara. She'll be insulted if you don't. They ate in silence for a while. The pasta was perfect. The wine was better. Around them, quiet conversations hummed, business being conducted in careful tones, deals being made in the spaces between words. Everyone here works for you, Elara said. Most of them. The rest wish they did. Dominic gestured to a man in the corner. Vincent's brother runs my import operations through the ports. The woman by the bar owns 3 legitimate restaurants that launder money from my less legitimate ventures. The 2 men by the kitchen handle collections and enforcement. You're showing me your entire operation. I'm showing you who I am. He set down his fork. Because if we're going to keep doing this, whatever this is, you need to understand what you're walking into. And what am I walking into? A world where problems get solved permanently, where loyalty matters more than law, where the people I protect stay protected, but the cost is accepting that protection comes with violence when necessary. He paused. Your ex learned that. Others will too if they threaten you. Elara's stomach twisted. I never asked you to, You didn't have to ask. You fell into my lap. That made you mine to protect. His voice went quieter. I don't do things halfway, Elara. If you're under my protection, you're all the way under it. That means no one touches you, no one threatens you, no one makes you afraid. And if they try, I make them regret it. That's not normal. I'm not normal. He picked up his wine, but I'm effective. Before Elara could respond, the door at the top of the stairs opened. Footsteps descended. Heavy, urgent, wrong. The entire room went quiet. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. Forks paused mid-air. A man appeared, one of Dominic's drivers, the one who'd taken Elara to the coffee shop. His face was pale. Blood stained his collar. Dominic was on his feet before the man reached the table. What happened? We have a problem. The driver's eyes flicked to Elara, then back to Dominic. A big one. Say it. Victor Cade. He knows about her. The name meant nothing to Elara, but Dominic's entire body went rigid, his jaw clenched. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. How? Dominic's voice was ice. One of Marcus's friends. Talked to the wrong people. Word got out that you're protecting someone. Victor put the pieces together. The driver pulled out his phone, showed Dominic something on the screen. Dominic's face went blank. Completely blank. The kind of blank that was more terrifying than anger because it meant he was already calculating responses, already planning violence. He turned the phone toward Elara. The screen showed a photo. Her. Leaving her new apartment building that morning. The timestamp was from 6 hours ago. Below it, a message. Pretty girl. Would be a shame if something happened to her. Elara's blood turned to ice water. Dominic pocketed the phone. His voice, when he spoke, was perfectly controlled. Get her somewhere safe. Now. Dominic, Elara started. Not negotiable. He looked at her, and for the first time since she'd met him, she saw something close to fear in his eyes. Victor Cade is not Marcus. He's not some obsessive ex-boyfriend who'll run when threatened. He's a competitor who's been looking for leverage against me for 3 years, and you just became that leverage. I don't understand. You don't need to. You need to do exactly what I tell you, exactly when I tell you to do it. He gestured to the driver. Take her to the safe house in Brighton. Full security. No one in or out without my clearance. The driver nodded. Yes, sir. Wait. Elara grabbed Dominic's arm. What are you going to do? Handle it? That's not an answer. His hand covered hers. Squeezed once. Victor wants a war. I'm going to give him one. But I can't do that if I'm worried about keeping you safe. So you're going somewhere he can't find you, and you're staying there until this is over. How long will that take? As long as it takes. He pulled away from her touch. Go. Now. The driver moved toward Elara, but she didn't move. You're scaring me. Good. You should be scared. Dominic's eyes held hers. Victor Cade doesn't play by rules. He doesn't make threats he won't follow through on. If he's targeting you, it's because he knows you matter to me, and he'll hurt you to hurt me. Why do I matter to you? The words came out desperate. You barely know me. I know enough. He touched her face just once, his thumb brushing her cheek. And I don't let go of things that matter, ever. So you're going to that safe house, and you're going to stay there, and you're going to trust that I'll end this. How? His hand dropped. By ending Victor. The driver took Elara's arm. She let him guide her toward the stairs because her legs had stopped taking commands from her brain. At the top, she looked back. Dominic stood in the center of the restaurant, phone pressed to his ear, already issuing orders in a voice too quiet to hear but terrifying in its calmness. Around him, every person in the room had shifted, no longer diners but soldiers waiting for commands. Then the door closed and Elara was in the alley, being pushed into a different car, this one armored, windows tinted so dark she could barely see out. Buckle up, the driver said. They drove for an hour. Out of the city, through suburbs that gave way to countryside, down roads that stopped being roads and became suggestions of paths through trees. The safe house materialized from nowhere, a compound surrounded by walls and cameras and men with guns who didn't bother hiding them. Inside, the house was comfortable but sterile, expensive furniture that no one had chosen with love. Art on the walls that meant nothing. A bedroom with locks on the inside and windows that didn't open. A prison dressed up as protection. The driver gestured to a woman in tactical gear. This is Maya. She's head of security here. Anything you need, ask her. Anything you want to know, ask her. But don't ask to leave, because the answer is no. Maya nodded. Mr. Rourke's orders are clear. You stay inside until he says otherwise. Elara looked around the safe house, at the cameras in every corner, at the armed guards visible through the windows, at the panic button by the bed that probably connected directly to Dominic. How long? She asked. However long it takes, Maya said. The driver left. Maya stayed, positioned by the door like a statue that happened to be armed. Elara's phone buzzed. Dominic. You're there? Yeah? Good. Stay inside. Don't argue with Maya. Don't try to leave. This is for your safety. You're treating me like a prisoner. I'm treating you like someone who matters. A pause, then, there's a difference. Is there? No response came. Elara threw her phone on the bed and looked out the window. Guards patrolled the perimeter. Cameras tracked their movements. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. She was safe. She was trapped. The two things had become identical. 3 days passed. Dominic called every night. Never for long. Just enough to confirm she was okay, that Maya was treating her well, that she hadn't tried to leave. His voice was always controlled, always calm, but underneath it Elara could hear the strain. The war with Victor was costing him something. On the 4th day, Sarah called. Where the hell are you? Her voice was sharp with panic. I've been trying to reach you for 3 days. Your office said you took emergency leave. Your apartment building said you moved out. What is going on? Elara looked at Maya, who was watching with professional disinterest. I can't tell you. Can't or won't? Both. Elara, listen to me very carefully. Sarah's voice dropped. 2 men came by my place yesterday, asked questions about you, where you were, who you were seeing, what you told me. They weren't cops, they were... She paused. They were the kind of men who make you feel like lying would be a fatal mistake. Elara's blood went cold. What did you tell them? Nothing, because I don't know anything. But they knew about your ex, knew you'd been having trouble, knew you'd met someone new who was helping you. Sarah took a shaky breath. They left a message for you, said to tell you that your friend Dominic is making things worse, that if you're smart, you'll walk away before people start dying. The phone slipped from Elara's hand. Maya was across the room in seconds. What happened? Victor's people went to my best friend's house. Elara's voice was shaking. They threatened her because of me. Maya picked up the phone, listened to Sarah still talking on the other end, and hung up. Then she pulled out her own phone. Mr. Rourke needs to know about this. No. Elara grabbed Maya's wrist. Don't tell him. I have to. It's protocol. If you tell him, he'll do something that escalates this. More people will get hurt. I can't... Her voice cracked. I can't be responsible for that. Maya's expression didn't change. You're not responsible. Victor is, and Mr. Rourke will handle it. She made the call. Dominic arrived 2 hours later. Elara heard the cars first, multiple engines, tires on gravel, doors slamming. Then his voice in the hallway, issuing orders that made the guards scatter. When he walked into the bedroom, his face was a mask of controlled fury. Victor went to Sarah's house. Not a question, a statement. Your people already told you. I want to hear it from you. He moved closer. What did they say to her? Elara repeated Sarah's message word for word. Watched Dominic's jaw tighten with each sentence. When she finished, he pulled out his phone and made a call. Find everyone who was at Sarah Mitchell's address yesterday. I want names, addresses, and current locations in 1 hour. He listened. I don't care where they are. Bring them in, all of them. He ended the call and looked at Elara. This doesn't touch you again. You can't promise that. Watch me. He moved to the window, looked out at the guards patrolling. Victor made a mistake. He should have come at me directly. Instead, he went after your friend. That tells me he's desperate, and desperate men make fatal errors. What are you going to do? Dominic turned to face her. What I should have done the day I learned he knew about you. I'm going to eliminate the problem. You mean kill him? I mean, remove him from the equation permanently. His voice was steel. Victor operates on fear and leverage. He thinks threatening you gives him power over me. He's wrong. All it does is guarantee his death. Elara's hands were shaking. I didn't ask for this, for any of this. I know. Then why? Why did you insert yourself into my life? Why did you make me matter to you? Her voice rose. I was nobody. Just some woman with a stalker ex-boyfriend. You could have sent Marcus away and forgotten about me. Instead, you built me an apartment, gave me security, made me... She stopped. Couldn't say it. Made you what? Dominic crossed the room, stopped inches from her. Say it. Made me care about you. The words came out broken. Made me think maybe I wasn't alone anymore. Made me believe I was safe, and now my best friend is being threatened because someone thinks hurting the people I love will hurt you. It will. He said it simply, like it was fact. Because you're not nobody, Elara. You haven't been nobody since the moment you apologized for falling into my lap instead of screaming. You became something the second I decided you were worth protecting. I don't want to be worth protecting if it means people die. Then you should have walked away on day one. His hand cupped her face. But you didn't. You got in my car, accepted my apartment, let me into your life. And now we're here, and the only way out is through. Through what? Through Victor, through this war, through me proving that threatening you was the last mistake he'll ever make. His thumb brushed her cheek. I told you I don't do things halfway. That includes this. Includes you. So you're going to stay here where you're safe, and I'm going to go handle Victor Cade, and when I come back, this will be over. What if you don't come back? Something flickered in his eyes. Then Maya has instructions to get you somewhere Victor will never find you. New identity, new city, new life. You'll be safe even if I'm not. Elara grabbed his shirt. Don't talk like that. I'm being realistic. You're being fatalistic. There's a difference. She pulled him closer. You made me care about you, made me need you. You don't get to disappear now. I'm not planning to disappear. His forehead rested against hers. But I need you to understand the risk. Victor isn't Marcus. He's not some civilian who'll run when threatened. He's been in this world as long as I have. He's survived because he's smart and ruthless and willing to do things I've only done when necessary. This fight won't be clean. Then don't fight it. Not an option. He pulled back, looked at her directly. He threatened you. Threatened Sarah. That can't stand. If I let this slide, every competitor in this city will think they can use the people I care about as leverage. I can't allow that. Won't allow that. So you're going to kill him. Yes. No hesitation, no apology. And everyone who helped him target you. Elara should have been horrified, should have pushed him away and demanded he find another solution. But Sarah's voice was still in her head, scared, shaken, asking questions Elara couldn't answer. And Marcus was still out there somewhere, alive but broken, because Dominic had made him that way. And Victor Cade had sent men to her best friend's house to deliver threats. She kissed Dominic, pulled him down to her, and kissed him with everything she'd been holding back for 4 days. with the fear and the anger and the desperate need to feel something other than trapped. He froze for half a second, then kissed her back with equal desperation. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, his eyes searched hers. "What was that?" he asked quietly. "A choice." Elara's hands were still fisted in his shirt. "I'm choosing this. Choosing you. Choosing to accept that you're going to do violent things to protect me, and I'm going to let you because I don't know how else to be safe anymore." "Elara, don't." She cut him off. "Don't try to talk me out of it. Don't try to give me an out. I'm making this choice with my eyes open. You're a criminal. You hurt people. You solve problems with violence. I know all of that, and I'm still choosing you." Dominic's hand slid into her hair. "You have no idea what you're saying yes to." "Then show me." He kissed her again. Slower this time. Deliberate. Like he was making a promise with his mouth that his words couldn't articulate. When he finally pulled away, his phone was ringing. He answered without looking at the screen. "Talk." He listened. "Good. I'll be there in 30 minutes. Have everything ready." He hung up and looked at Elara. "I have to go." "I know. Stay here. Don't leave for any reason. Maya's in charge." "I know that too." He moved to the door, paused with his hand on the handle. "When this is over, we're going to have a very long conversation about what happens next." "I'll be here." He left. Elara stood in the empty room and tried to process what she'd just done. She'd kissed a crime lord, told him she was choosing him, accepted that he was going to kill people on her behalf, and she was okay with it. The woman she'd been a week ago wouldn't recognize her. That woman had believed in laws and systems and protection that came from police reports and restraining orders. This woman understood that sometimes safety required blood. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. "He can't protect you forever." Elara's hands went numb. She showed the message to Maya, who immediately pulled out her phone and made a call. Within minutes, the house was on lockdown. Guards doubled, windows covered, every entrance barricaded. Another message came through. "Pretty house, lots of cameras. Won't matter. We're patient." Maya took Elara's phone. "We need to move you." "Where?" "Somewhere they haven't found yet." Maya was already moving, pulling Elara toward the back of the house, where a car waited, engine running. "Get in." Elara climbed into the back seat. 2 guards joined her, weapons visible, faces grim. Maya took the front passenger seat. The car peeled away from the safe house. They drove for 20 minutes before the first shot shattered the back window. Glass exploded inward. Elara screamed. The guards pushed her down, covered her body with theirs as more shots rang out. The driver swerved, accelerated, but there were vehicles behind them now. Black SUVs with tinted windows and men leaning out with guns. "Call Mr. Rourke," Maya barked at one of the guards. "Tell him we're compromised." Another window shattered. One of the guards grunted, blood blooming across his shoulder. He kept his weapon up, kept his body between Elara and the bullets, but she could feel him shaking. The car took a corner too fast. Tires screamed. Something hit the rear bumper, another vehicle ramming them. The guard on Elara's right fired back, 3 quick shots that made her ears ring. Then the car was spinning. Metal crunched. The world tilted. Elara felt herself thrown sideways, felt the guard's weight shift, felt glass and blood and terror mixing together. When everything stopped moving, she was upside down. The car had flipped. Someone was pulling her through broken glass, hands rough, urgent, not gentle. She tried to fight, but her body wasn't responding correctly. Everything hurt. Everything was wrong. "Got her," someone said. Not Maya's voice. Someone else. Elara's vision was blurry, but she saw Maya on the ground outside the overturned car, blood pooling beneath her head. The guards weren't moving. The driver was slumped over the wheel. She tried to scream, but someone put a hand over her mouth. "Quiet," a man's voice said. "Victor wants to meet you." They dragged her into one of the SUVs, zip-tied her hands, threw a hood over her head. The last thing she heard before darkness took her was her phone ringing, Dominic's ringtone. Then nothing. When Elara woke, the hood was gone, but her hands were still bound. She was in a warehouse, empty except for a chair, the one she was sitting in, and a table with tools she didn't want to identify. Concrete floors, metal walls, no windows, the kind of place where screams wouldn't carry. A man stood in front of her. He was younger than she'd expected, maybe 40. Well-dressed, handsome in a way that would have been appealing if his eyes weren't dead. Completely dead, like looking into the eyes of something that had forgotten how to be human. "Elara Vance," he said. "I'm Victor Cade. We need to talk about Dominic Rourke." Elara's voice came out hoarse. "I don't know anything." "You know enough. You know where he lives, where he eats, who he trusts, how he thinks." Victor pulled up a second chair, sat directly in front of her. "You know the man. That's what matters." "I barely know him." "You know him well enough that he went to war for you. That's more than most people can say." Victor leaned forward. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to call Dominic, tell him you're scared, and you want to meet somewhere public, somewhere I choose. And when he shows up, my people are going to end this." "He won't come." "He will. Because you matter to him. Because he spent the last week proving that protecting you is more important than protecting himself." Victor smiled. It was worse than his dead eyes. Men like Dominic have one weakness. They care too much about the wrong things. You're his wrong thing. Elara's mind was racing. Maya was dead. The guards were dead. The driver was dead. All because Victor wanted leverage against Dominic. All because she'd fallen into the wrong man's lap. "I won't do it," she said. Victor stood. "You will. Because the alternative is watching everyone you've ever cared about die slowly while I make you listen." He pulled out a phone, showed her a photo. Sarah, tied to a chair. Bruised. Terrified. Elara's world stopped. "She's alive for now," Victor said. "How long she stays that way depends on your cooperation." He set the phone on the table. "Call Dominic, set up the meeting, or I start with her fingers and work my way up." Elara looked at Sarah's photo, at her best friend's terrified face, at the evidence that Victor Cade wasn't bluffing. She thought about Dominic somewhere in the city, probably already looking for her, probably already mobilizing his entire organization to find her and destroy Victor. She thought about what he'd said. "I don't do things halfway." If she made this call, if she lured him into Victor's trap, Dominic would die, would walk into it knowing it was a trap because he'd do it anyway, because she mattered. If she didn't make the call, Sarah would die, slowly, painfully, and then Victor would find someone else to use as leverage. There was no good choice, only degrees of destruction. Victor untied one of her hands, placed a phone in it. "Call him, now." Elara stared at the phone, at the choice that would define everything that came after, at the moment where her life split into before and after. She dialed Dominic's number. He answered on the first ring. "Elara, where are you?" His voice was strained, terrified, more human than she'd ever heard it. Her voice cracked. "I'm in trouble." "I know. Maya's people found the crash site. I'm coming for you. Stay alive. I'll find you." Victor leaned close, whispered in her ear. "Tell him you need to see him. Pier 17. Midnight. Come alone, or your friend dies." Elara closed her eyes. "Dominic, I need you to listen to me." "I'm listening." "They have Sarah. They want you." The words tasted like ash. "Pier 17, midnight, alone. If you bring anyone, they'll kill her." Silence on the other end. Then, "I'll be there." "Don't." Elara's voice broke. "Don't come. It's a trap. They're going to kill you." "I know." His voice was calm again, steady. The voice of a man who'd already made his choice. "But I'm coming anyway. Because you matter more than my life does. Dominic, stay alive until I get there. That's all I need you to do. Stay alive. I'll handle the rest." The line went dead. Victor took the phone back. "Good girl." He nodded to someone behind Elara. "Put her with the friend. Let them have a few hours together before midnight. It's more humane that way." Hands grabbed Elara's arms, dragged her into another room where Sarah sat tied to a chair, face bloodied, eyes swollen from crying. "Elara," Sarah whispered. "What did you do?" Elara knelt beside her friend's chair. "I made the only choice I had. He's going to die." "I know." "Then why?" Elara looked at Sarah, her best friend since college, the person who'd been there through every bad relationship, every career setback, every moment of crisis, the person who'd done nothing except care about her. "Because saving you is worth losing him." The words were a lie. But they were the only ones she could manage. because the truth was worse. The truth was that she was choosing Dominic to die so Sarah could live. And somewhere in the city, Dominic Rourke was preparing to walk into certain death because he'd made the same choice in reverse. He was choosing to die so Elara could live. The math of it was simple. The weight of it was destroying her from the inside out. In 6 hours, at Pier 17, one of them would be dead. And Elara would have to live with knowing she'd made the call that killed him. Or he'd have to live with knowing he'd sacrificed himself to save her. Either way, the woman who'd fallen into a crime lord's lap a week ago was gone. In her place was someone who understood what Dominic had been trying to tell her all along. In this world, safety required blood. Love required sacrifice. And sometimes the cost of both was losing the only thing that made either one worth having. Outside, the clock ticked toward midnight, and Elara sat in a warehouse with her dying best friend and waited for the man she'd chosen to walk into his own execution. All because she'd fallen. All because he'd caught her. All because neither of them had understood that sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do is matter to someone who'll burn the world down to keep you safe. The warehouse door opened. Victor walked in. 4 hours until midnight. You might want to say your goodbyes, just in case Dominic decides to be a hero. Elara looked up at him. He will be. I know, Victor smiled. That's what I'm counting on. And somewhere in the darkness, Dominic Rourke was arming himself for war, knowing he was walking into a trap, knowing he'd probably die, doing it anyway. Because some men are monsters, and some monsters love so completely they'll sacrifice everything to protect what they've claimed. Elara closed her eyes and prayed, to whoever might be listening in a godless world, that the man she'd chosen would survive what she'd just condemned him to. But prayer had never saved anyone in this city. Only violence did. And at midnight, there would be enough violence to drown them all. Midnight came with fog rolling off the water. Pier 17 stretched into darkness like a finger pointing at nothing. The old industrial docks had been abandoned for years. Rusted equipment, rotted wood, buildings with broken windows that reflected the city lights like fractured mirrors. The perfect place for an execution disguised as a meeting. Elara sat in the warehouse with Sarah, listening to Victor's men move equipment outside. Preparing. They'd untied Sarah an hour ago, let her sit next to Elara on the cold concrete floor. A small mercy that felt more like cruelty because it meant they'd both be conscious when Dominic died. Sarah's hand found Elara's in the darkness. This isn't your fault. Yes, it is. Elara's voice was hollow. I brought him into our lives. I let him protect me. I made him care. You didn't make him do anything. Men like that, they choose their own paths. Sarah squeezed her hand. But Elara, listen to me. When this is over, when he's... She couldn't finish, started again. You have to promise me you'll survive this. Promise me you won't let what happens tonight destroy you. Elara looked at her best friend, at the bruises on her face, the split lip, the terror she was trying to hide beneath forced strength. I can't promise that. Try. Before Elara could respond, the door opened. Victor stood silhouetted against harsh fluorescent light, checking his watch. It's time. Bring them both. 2 men hauled Elara and Sarah to their feet, zip-tied their hands again, walked them out into the night where the pier waited like a gallows. The fog was thicker now, dense enough that visibility dropped to maybe 30 feet. The water lapped against pylons with wet, rhythmic sounds that felt like a countdown. Victor's men were positioned everywhere, on the pier, in the buildings, behind cargo containers, maybe 20 of them, all armed, all waiting. Victor positioned Elara and Sarah at the end of the pier, right at the edge where one wrong step meant falling into black water. He checked his watch again. 5 minutes. Your boyfriend is punctual, if nothing else. He's not my boyfriend, Elara said. No? Victor tilted his head. Then what is he? Elara didn't answer because she didn't have words for what Dominic was. Protector, captor, savior, destroyer. The man who'd rearranged her entire existence in a week and made her grateful for it even as it killed her. A car engine cut through the fog. Every gun on the pier shifted toward the sound. Headlights appeared. A single vehicle moving slowly down the access road. It stopped 50 feet from the pier. The engine died. The door opened. Dominic stepped out alone. He wore all black. No suit tonight. Just tactical pants, boots, a tight shirt that showed every line of muscle beneath. His hands were visible, empty, raised slightly in a gesture of peace that everyone knew was a lie. He walked toward the pier like he was strolling through a park, unhurried, unafraid, like he hadn't just walked into a kill zone with 20 guns aimed at his chest. "That's far enough," Victor called. Dominic stopped. His eyes found Elara across the distance. Even through the fog, even with 30 feet between them, she felt the weight of that gaze, felt him assessing her injuries, cataloging her fear, calculating how many people he'd have to kill to get her out alive. "Let them go," Dominic said. His voice carried across the water, calm and certain. "This is between us." "It was never between us." Victor pulled a gun from his jacket. "You made it about them when you decided this woman was worth starting a war over. Now it ends the way it should have from the beginning, with you dead and your empire carved up by people who understand that caring about civilians is weakness. Caring is the only thing that separates us from animals." Dominic took a step forward. Several guns clicked. He stopped. "But you wouldn't understand that. You've never cared about anything except power. Power is the only thing that matters." "You're wrong." Dominic's eyes never left Elara. "There are things worth dying for. You just never found one." Victor raised his gun, aimed it at Elara's head. "Any last words before I show you what happens to your worth dying for thing?" "Yes." Dominic smiled. Actually smiled. "Now." The fog exploded. Not literally, but it might as well have. From the water, from the buildings, from positions Elara couldn't see, Dominic's people materialized. They'd been there the whole time, hidden in the darkness, waiting for the signal. Gunfire erupted. Muzzle flashes lit the fog like lightning. Victor's men scattered, returning fire, but they were already dying. Dominic's people were professionals, ex-military, trained killers who moved through the chaos with surgical precision. 3 of Victor's men dropped in the first 5 seconds. 5 more in the next 10. Victor grabbed Elara, used her as a shield. His gun pressed against her temple. "Call them off, or she dies." Dominic was already moving, not toward Victor, toward the nearest cargo container. He rolled behind it as bullets chewed into the metal where he'd been standing. When he came up, he had a gun in each hand. "Let her go, Victor." Dominic's voice was steady, even as the world tore itself apart around them. "Let her go, and I'll give you a head start. Keep her, and you die here." "You're not in a position to negotiate." "Yes, I am." Dominic fired twice. 2 of Victor's men went down. "Because in 30 seconds, everyone you brought is dead, and you're alone with me. And we both know how that ends." He was right. Elara could see it happening. Victor's men were dropping one by one, outgunned and outmaneuvered. Dominic's people moved like ghosts through the fog, there and gone, killing and vanishing, impossible to pin down. Victor's grip on Elara tightened. "If I'm dying, she's dying with me." "No!" Sarah lunged, drove her shoulder into Victor's side. It wasn't much, her hands were still bound, but it was enough. Victor's gun moved away from Elara's head for half a second. Dominic shot him. The bullet took Victor in the shoulder. He spun, pulling Elara with him. They teetered at the edge of the pier. Elara felt the drop behind her, felt Victor's weight pulling them both backward. Then Sarah hit them again. All her weight, all her terror, all her desperate need to save her best friend. They went over the edge. The water was freezing, black. Elara's breath left her in a shocked gasp that filled her lungs with salt water. Her hands were still tied. She couldn't swim, couldn't see, couldn't breathe. Something grabbed her, pulled her down. Victor. Still holding on, still trying to take her with him even as he drowned. She kicked, fought, used the only weapon she had, her forehead, and slammed it into his face. Felt his nose break, felt his grip loosen. She kicked again, toward where she thought the surface was. Her lungs were burning, her vision was going dark. Then hands, different hands, grabbed her, pulled her up. Her head broke the surface and she gasped, choking, dying, alive. Dominic. He jumped in after her, was holding her above water with one arm while keeping them both afloat. "I've got you. Breathe." She couldn't breathe, couldn't do anything except cough water and shake. "Breathe, Elara. In through your nose, out through your mouth." His voice was calm, like they weren't treading water in the dark while gunfire continued above. "That's it. Again." She breathed. Once, twice. The third time didn't hurt as much. Sarah, she managed. She's safe. My people have her. He was swimming toward the pier supports, pulling her with him. Can you hold on to me? She nodded. Wrapped her arms around his neck even though her hands were still bound. He swam one-armed, powerful strokes that cut through the water like he'd done this 1,000 times. They reached the supports. Dominic positioned her against one, used a knife she hadn't seen him pull to cut her zip ties. Her wrist came free, bloody and raw. Stay here, he said. Don't move. I need to finish this. Victor is dead, drowned. I saw him go down. Dominic touched her face. Stay here. He hauled himself up onto the pier with impossible strength. Above them, the gunfire had stopped. The silence was somehow worse. Elara clung to the support and listened to footsteps, voices calling out clear codes, the sound of someone groaning in pain before a single gunshot ended it. Then Dominic's face appeared above her. Give me your hands. She reached up. He pulled her out of the water like she weighed nothing. Set her on the pier where Sarah was already sitting, wrapped in someone's jacket, shaking but alive. They grabbed each other, held on while Dominic's people swept the area, checking bodies, confirming kills, securing the perimeter. The fog was lifting. Dawn was maybe an hour away. And scattered across Pier 17 were 20 bodies, all of Victor's men. None of Dominic's. It wasn't a battle. It had been an execution. You planned this, Elara said. Her voice was hoarse from the salt water. You knew it was a trap. Of course I knew. Dominic pulled off his wet shirt, wrung it out. Victor's entire strategy relied on me walking in alone and stupid. I'm neither. You could have told me. No, I couldn't. He looked at her. Because Victor had to believe the trap worked. Had to think I was coming alone. The only way to sell that was if you believed it too. Your fear had to be real. Elara's hands were shaking. You let me think you were going to die. I let Victor think I was going to die. There's a difference. He gestured to one of his men. Get them somewhere warm. Medical check. Full debrief in 2 hours. Dominic, not here. He turned away. We'll talk when this is cleaned up. 2 hours later, Elara sat in a safe apartment downtown. Not the safe house that had been compromised. Not her luxury building. Somewhere new, somewhere temporary, somewhere that smelled like antiseptic and coffee. Sarah was asleep in the bedroom. The medic had checked her over, treated her injuries, given her something for the pain and trauma. She'd be okay, physically at least. Elara couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she felt the water closing over her head, felt Victor's hands dragging her down, felt the certainty that she was going to die. The door opened. Dominic walked in, clean now, wearing fresh clothes, looking like he hadn't just orchestrated a massacre on a pier. He carried 2 mugs of coffee, set one in front of her. You're angry, he said. I'm processing. Process out loud. I want to hear it. Elara picked up the coffee, didn't drink it. You used me. Used my fear. Let me make that call thinking I was sending you to your death. Yes. You don't even sound sorry. I'm not. He sat across from her. I did what was necessary to end Victor and save you both. If that required you to believe I was walking into a suicide mission, that's what I did. That's manipulative. That's tactical. He took a sip of his coffee. Victor needed to believe he had the upper hand. Needed to think he'd broken you enough that you'd betray me. The only way to sell that was if your fear was genuine. So you let me suffer. I let you survive. His voice hardened. If Victor had suspected for 1 second that I was prepared, he would have killed you and Sarah immediately and disappeared. This way, he committed to the meeting, brought all his people, put himself in a position where I could end him permanently. Elara set her mug down. 19 men died tonight. 20. Victor makes 20. And you're okay with that. They made a choice when they agreed to help Victor target you. They knew the risks. They died anyway. Dominic leaned forward. You want me to feel guilty about protecting you? I don't. Won't. Those men would have killed you without hesitation if Victor had ordered it. I simply killed them first. That's not how the world is supposed to work. It's exactly how the world works. You just spent most of your life not seeing it. He finished his coffee. The legal system failed you with Marcus. Failed Sarah tonight. Failed every person who's ever been victimized by someone with enough money or connections to avoid consequences. I don't rely on systems that fail. I rely on solutions that work. Solutions that involve mass murder. Solutions that ensure the people I protect stay protected. He stood. You can hate me for it, but you're alive. Sarah's alive. Victor and everyone who helped him target you are dead. That's the math. And I'll take that trade every single time. Elara looked up at him. What happens now? Now you decide. He moved to the window, looked out at the city waking up. You can walk away. I'll set you up somewhere safe. New identity if you want it. Money to start over. Victor's organization is destroyed, but there might be scattered remnants who want revenge. I can make sure you disappear completely if that's what you choose. And if I don't want to disappear, then you accept what I am, what this life is. You accept that being with me means living in a world where problems are solved with violence, where your safety requires my willingness to destroy anyone who threatens you, where normal doesn't exist and never will. He turned to face her. I can't be someone else, Elara. This is who I am, what I am, and I won't apologize for it. I'm not asking you to apologize. Then what are you asking? Elara stood, crossed to where he stood. I'm asking if you meant what you said, that I'm worth dying for. Yes, no hesitation. Even though you knew you weren't going to die? Even though... He touched her face, fingers gentle despite everything they'd done tonight. I would have died if it came to that. Would have walked into that trap alone and unarmed if it meant keeping you alive. The fact that I had a better plan doesn't change the truth. You're worth it. Why? The question came out broken. Why me? You barely know me. I know enough. I know you apologized when you fell instead of making it someone else's problem. I know you worked yourself into debt trying to be good at something that didn't appreciate you. I know you spent 6 weeks being terrorized and never once gave up. His thumb brushed her cheek. I know you kissed me even knowing what I am. And I know that when I look at you, I see someone worth protecting, someone worth keeping, someone worth burning the world down for if necessary. Elara's breath caught. That's insane. Probably. He almost smiled. But I've never been particularly sane about the things I care about. She should walk away. Should take his offer of a new identity and disappear into whatever normal life she could build from the ashes of this one. Should prove that she was still capable of making rational decisions. Instead, she kissed him. Pulled him down and kissed him like she'd been drowning, and he was air. Like he'd just fought through 20 men to save her because he had. Like she was choosing this deliberately, with full knowledge of what it meant. When they broke apart, she was crying. I don't know how to be the person who's okay with this. You don't have to be okay with it. You just have to accept it. He held her while she shook. I can't promise normal, can't promise safe, can't even promise legal, but I can promise that anyone who tries to hurt you will regret it. And I can promise that as long as I'm alive, you're protected. That's not enough. I know. He kissed her forehead. But it's all I have. They stood there while the sun came up, while the city transformed from darkness into light, while somewhere far away Victor's body was probably washing up on shore, and his organization was discovering their leader was dead. Sarah emerged from the bedroom, looking fragile but functional. She took one look at Elara and Dominic standing together and shook her head. You're staying with him. Yes, Elara said. Even after everything? Because of everything! Elara pulled away from Dominic to face her friend. He saved us. Saved me. And I... She stopped. Tried again. I need him. Sarah looked at Dominic. If you ever put her in danger again, you'll do what? Dominic's voice was mild. Call the police? They won't touch me. Hire someone to hurt me? They won't live long enough to try. Hate me? You already do. He moved to the door. But understand this. I didn't put Elara in danger. Victor did, and Victor is dead because of it. Anyone else who makes that mistake will end the same way. He left. Sarah sat next to Elara on the couch. You're really doing this, building a life with a man who kills people. I don't know if I'm building a life with him. I just know I'm not leaving. Elara took Sarah's hand. I'm sorry for dragging you into this, for... Stop, Sarah squeezed. You didn't drag me anywhere. That psychopath Victor did. And your boyfriend, he's not my boyfriend. Your whatever he is saved my life. Probably save both our lives. She paused. But Elara, you have to understand what you're choosing. This doesn't end. Men like Dominic, they're always at war, always fighting. You're choosing to stand in that fire. I know. And you're okay with it? Elara thought about the question. About Marcus disappearing. About Victor drowning. About 19 men dead on a pier because they'd threatened her. About Dominic's hands covered in blood he'd never apologize for spilling. No, she said honestly, I'm not okay with it. But I'm choosing it anyway. 3 months later, Elara stood in her apartment. The real one. The one Dominic had given her, now filled with furniture she'd chosen, and art she'd picked, and a life she'd built from the wreckage of her old one. She'd quit Morrison and Blake, started her own architectural firm. Small projects for now, but they were hers, her designs, her name on the buildings. Dominic had provided the capital, introduced her to clients, made it clear that anyone who disrespected her would answer to him. It wasn't normal, but it was hers. Marcus had never resurfaced. Elara didn't ask what had happened to him after that final text. Didn't want to know. He was gone. That was enough. Victor's organization had fractured. Some had tried to retaliate. Those attempts had ended quickly and violently. Dominic's reputation had grown, not just powerful, but untouchable. The man who destroyed Victor Cade in a single night. Elara's phone rang, Dominic's name on the screen. I'm downstairs, he said when she answered. Come up. She heard the elevator, heard his key in the lock. He walked in carrying flowers. Not roses, because he'd learned she hated roses. Lilies. Simple and elegant and expensive. Bad day? She asked. Complicated day. He set the flowers on the counter. Negotiation went sideways, had to remind some people why agreements matter. Elara didn't ask how he'd reminded them. Didn't need to. Anyone die? Not yet. Gave them 48 hours to reconsider. He pulled her close. How was your day? Good. Landed the Riverside project, $15 million contract. Congratulations. He kissed her. Dinner to celebrate? Here. I cooked. He raised an eyebrow. You cooked? I'm learning. She moved to the kitchen where pasta was simmering. It might be terrible. I'll eat it anyway. They ate dinner together, talked about her project, about his negotiations, about the normal, mundane details of lives that were anything but normal. After, they sat on the couch while rain started falling outside. Sarah called today? Elara said. She's seen someone. A teacher. Normal job. Normal life. Good for her. She thinks I'm insane for staying with you. She's probably right. Dominic pulled Elara closer. Are you happy? The question caught her off guard. What? Are you happy? Here. With me. With this life. Elara thought about it. About the apartment and the security and the business Dominic had helped her build. About the nights he came home with blood on his hands, and the mornings he made coffee and asked about her projects. About the way he'd rearranged her entire world and somehow made it work. I don't know if happy is the right word, she said honestly. But I'm alive. I'm building something that matters. And I'm with someone who sees me. She looked up at him. That's more than I had before. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. He kissed the top of her head. Good enough. They sat in silence while the rain fell harder. While the city moved on outside, full of people living normal lives with normal problems. People who'd never fallen into the lap of a crime lord. People who'd never had to choose between legal and safe. Elara's phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. She opened it without thinking. Congratulations on your new contract. Your father would be proud. M. The world stopped. Her father had died when she was 15. Heart attack. Sudden. Devastating. No one should know that except people who'd known her for years. Except Marcus. She showed Dominic the message, watched his expression go cold. He's back, Elara whispered. No. Dominic took her phone, made a call. I need a trace on this number. Now. He listened. I don't care if it's encrypted. Find it. He hung up and looked at Elara. Pack a bag. You're staying at the safe house until this is resolved. I'm tired of running. You're not running. You're being smart. He was already moving, pulling out his own phone, issuing orders to people Elara couldn't see. Marcus should be in Chicago. If he's back, it means he's desperate. And desperate men are dangerous. You said he'd never come back. I said he'd be too scared to come back. Fear and desperation make people stupid. Dominic grabbed her shoulders. Listen to me. This is not Victor. This is not an organization we can dismantle. This is one obsessive man who's decided the threat of death is worth the chance to get to you. That makes him unpredictable. And I don't take chances with unpredictable. Elara's hands were shaking again. How long? As long as it takes to find him. Dominic kissed her hard. Pack. Now. She packed. Within an hour, she was back at a safe house. Different one. Better security. Maya's replacement, a woman named Chen who looked like she could break someone in half, stood by the door. Dominic left her there with promises that this time would be different. This time, he'd find Marcus before Marcus found her. But as Elara sat in another expensive prison, waiting for another man to save her from another threat, she realized the truth. This would never end. There would always be another threat. Another Victor. Another Marcus. Another person who saw her as leverage against Dominic or saw Dominic's protection as a challenge to overcome. This was the life she'd chosen, and she had to decide if she could live it. 2 days later, Dominic called. We found him. Where? 3 blocks from your apartment. He'd been watching, waiting. A pause. He's not watching anymore. Elara's throat closed. Is he dead? No. But he understands now that coming back was a mistake he won't recover from. Dominic's voice was flat. You're safe. Come home. Home. Not her apartment. Not the safe house. Dominic's penthouse. That's where the car took her. Up to the top floor, into the space that was his but was becoming theirs through some unspoken agreement neither had acknowledged out loud. He was waiting when she arrived. No blood this time. Just Dominic, clean and controlled, standing by the windows that overlooked everything. Marcus is on a plane to Australia, he said without turning. One-way ticket. Cash he doesn't have but received from an account he can't trace. He takes the flight and disappears, or he refuses and disappears permanently. His choice. You're letting him leave. I'm giving him the opportunity to leave. What he does with it determines whether he lives or dies. Dominic turned to face her. He won't come back. Not this time. I made sure he understood what happens if he does. Elara should have asked how. Should have demanded details. Should have cared about what Dominic had done to ensure Marcus's compliance. She didn't. She was tired. Tired of being threatened. Tired of running. Tired of living in fear that the next message, the next photo, the next threat would be the one that finally broke her. I can't do this anymore, she said quietly. Dominic went very still. Do what? Live like this, waiting for the next crisis, the next person who decides I'm worth using as leverage against you. She moved to the windows, looked out at the city. I thought I could. Thought I was choosing this with my eyes open. But Sarah was right. This doesn't end. It just keeps happening. I can protect you. I know, you have. But protection isn't the same as safety. And I need, her voice cracked, I need to know that someday I can just exist without waiting for someone to take me hostage or send me threatening messages or drag me into whatever war you're fighting. That week, Dominic was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was different, softer, more human than she'd ever heard it. What do you want me to do? I don't know. Elara turned to face him. I don't want to leave you, but I don't know how to stay like this. Then we change how this works. He crossed to her. I've been trying to build you a life inside my world. That was wrong. Your world and mine, they can't mix completely without destroying one or both. So what are you saying? I'm saying I keep my work separate from you. No more bringing you to restaurants where my people eat. No more exposing you to the details of what I do. You build your firm, live your life, and I make sure that life stays protected without dragging you into the violence required to protect it. That's not possible. People know about me now. People knew about you because Victor made you visible. I can make you invisible again. He took her hands. New apartment, different neighborhood, different security that doesn't look like security. You go to work, come home, live your life. And I handle threats before they become threats, before you even know they existed. That's just hiding me. That's keeping you safe while letting you live. He pulled her closer. I can't be someone different. Can't stop being what I am. but I can make sure what I am doesn't consume what you are. If you'll let me. Elara looked up at him, at the man who'd killed 20 people to save her, who'd reorganized his entire empire to protect her, who was offering to reorganize it again to give her something close to normal. What if it's not enough, she asked. What if we try this and it still doesn't work? Then you walk away. I set you up somewhere I can't find you. You build a life I'm not part of. His jaw tightened. But I'd rather try and fail than watch you leave without fighting for this. This? You keep saying this. What is this? You and me. Whatever we're building. Whatever this becomes. He touched her face. I don't have words for it. Don't know what to call it. But I know I want it. Want you. And I'm willing to change everything to keep you. Elara closed her eyes. Felt tears she'd been holding back finally break free. I fell into your lap. You did. And you caught me. I did. And now we're here, in this impossible situation, trying to make something work that probably shouldn't. She opened her eyes. That's insane. Probably. He wiped her tears with his thumbs. But I've never been particularly sane about you. She kissed him. Let him hold her while she cried. While she made a choice she'd been circling for months. She was staying, not in the safe house, not in hiding, not as the woman waiting for the next crisis, as herself. Elara Vance, architect, survivor. The woman who'd fallen and been caught and decided that being caught was better than being safe alone. 6 months after that, Elara walked into Aurelius, the same restaurant where everything had started, where her heel had snapped and she'd fallen into Dominic's lap, and her entire life had spun off in a direction she never could have predicted. She wore new heels, expensive ones that Dominic had replaced 3 times because she kept wearing them out. A dress she'd bought herself with money from her firm, confidence she'd earned through buildings with her name on them. The hostess recognized her immediately. Miss Vance, Mr. Rourke is waiting. She followed the hostess through the dining room, felt eyes track her, not with judgment this time, but with recognition. She was known here now. The woman Dominic Rourke protected, the architect whose buildings were starting to change the city's skyline. Dominic sat at the same table, the one where she'd landed in his lap. He stood when she approached, pulled out her chair, waited until she sat. You're late, he said. Client meeting ran long. The Harrison project is expanding. She accepted the wine he poured. How was your day? Productive. The negotiation I mentioned closed successfully. No violence required. That's progress. That's strategy. Violence is expensive. Cooperation is cheaper. He raised his glass. To successful negotiations. They touched glasses, drank, fell into the easy rhythm they'd developed over months of trying to make this work. Her apartment, new, different, separate from his world, sat empty across town. She stayed there most nights, worked from the office he'd set up in the second bedroom, lived a life that looked almost normal to outside observers. But 3 nights a week, she stayed with him. In the penthouse that was becoming theirs through accumulated nights and morning coffee and the slow accumulation of her things mixed with his. It wasn't perfect. Marcus sent one more message 3 months ago. Just a photo. Him in Australia standing on a beach, giving the camera the finger. Dominic had traced it, confirmed he was staying there, and done nothing else. Because Marcus was an ocean away and Elara was safe, and some battles weren't worth fighting. Victor's organization was dust. Other competitors had risen to fill the void, but none had made the mistake of targeting Elara. Word had spread about what happened to people who did. Sarah had gotten married. To the teacher. Invited Elara to the wedding, but asked that Dominic not come. Elara had gone alone, smiled through the ceremony, toasted to normal lives, and gone home to Dominic afterward without regret. Different worlds, but both hers. Now sitting across from Dominic in the restaurant where it all started, Elara realized something. She was happy. Not the simple happiness of a life without complications, but the complex, hard-won happiness of someone who'd survived hell and chosen to build something from the ashes. You're thinking loud, Dominic said. Just processing. Process out loud. She smiled. I was thinking about the night we met. How terrified I was. How convinced I was that you were going to be my biggest problem. Was I wrong? You were the solution I didn't know I needed. She set down her wine. And I was thinking about how far we've come. how we made this work when it probably shouldn't have. It works because we chose to make it work. He reached across the table, took her hand. Every day, every choice, every compromise. That's what makes it possible. Is this the part where you propose? The words were out before she could stop them. Dominic's expression didn't change. Is that what you want? Elara's heart kicked. I don't know, maybe, someday. She paused. Is it what you want? He pulled a small box from his pocket, set it on the table between them. She stared at it. You're kidding. I don't kid about important things. He didn't open the box, just let it sit there. I bought this 3 months ago. Been carrying it around, waiting for the right moment. And tonight's the right moment? You brought it up. Seemed as good a time as any. He pushed the box toward her. Open it. She did. Inside was a ring. Simple. Elegant. Expensive, but not ostentatious. The kind of ring someone would wear who needed to blend into normal society while being protected by someone who decidedly didn't. I'm not asking you to marry me tonight, Dominic said. I'm asking you to consider the possibility, someday, when you're ready, if you're ever ready. Elara looked at the ring, at the man across from her, at the life they'd built from impossible circumstances and violence and choices that had led them here. Ask me in a year, she said. A year? Give me a year to prove we can keep doing this, that we're not just surviving the chaos but actually building something sustainable. She closed the box, slid it back to him. Ask me then, and I'll have an answer. He pocketed the box. Fair enough. They finished dinner, walked out into the night where a car waited, one of Dominic's, driven by one of his people, because some things would never change. The city sprawled around them, full of light and dark, and people living their lives without knowing that just beneath the surface, men like Dominic kept the chaos at bay through violence and strategy and the willingness to destroy anyone who threatened what they'd chosen to protect. Elara looked out the window as they drove, at the buildings she'd designed, at the streets she'd walked when she was still just an architect with a stalker ex-boyfriend and no idea that her life was about to explode. That woman was gone. In her place was someone harder, smarter, more willing to live in the gray spaces between legal and right. Someone who understood that safety sometimes required blood and protection, sometimes looked like control and love, sometimes came wrapped in violence. The car pulled up to the penthouse. Dominic's hand found hers in the darkness. You okay? He asked. Yeah. She squeezed his hand. I am. And she was. Not perfect. Not safe in the way normal people understood safety. Not living a life that would ever make complete sense to people like Sarah. But alive. Building something that mattered. Loved by a man dangerous enough to protect it all. They rode the elevator up together. Walked into the penthouse where their lives had tangled together into something neither could have predicted. Elara kicked off her heels, carefully this time, no broken straps, and moved to the windows. The city stretched below, infinite and indifferent. Dominic came up behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist, held her while they looked out at everything they'd fought for. A year, he said quietly. I'll ask you again in a year. I know. And if the answer is no, Elara leaned back against him, then we keep doing this, whatever this is, for as long as it works. And if it stops working? She thought about that, about the possibility of walking away, of building a life without Dominic's protection, without his organization, without the complicated mess of loving someone who solved problems with violence. Then I'll tell you, she said, and we'll figure it out together. Together. He kissed the top of her head. I can work with that. They stood there while the city moved on below. While somewhere far away, Marcus was probably drinking on a beach and trying to forget the woman who'd gotten away. While Victor's grave sat unmarked in a cemetery no one visited, while Elara's buildings changed the skyline one project at a time. The night she'd fallen into Dominic's lap had changed everything. Had taken a woman who believed in systems and laws and turned her into someone who understood that sometimes the only justice available came from men willing to operate outside those systems. She'd fallen. He'd caught her. And they'd built something from that moment that defied every rule about how life was supposed to work. It wasn't the ending she'd imagined when she was running through a restaurant in broken heels, desperate and afraid. But it was the ending she'd chosen. And in a city that never forgave weakness, That choice made all the difference. Elara Vance had fallen into the empire of the most feared crime lord in the city. And somewhere along the way, that empire had become home. Not despite what it was, but because of everything they'd survived to build it. The morning came soft and quiet. Elara woke in Dominic's arms, in a bed that had become theirs through accumulated nights and unspoken agreements. She watched him sleep, rare because he barely slept, and thought about the year ahead, about the question he'd ask and the answer she'd have to give, about whether this thing they'd built could survive beyond crisis, beyond threats, beyond the violence that had brought them together. She didn't know yet, but she had a year to figure it out, a year to prove that what started with a fall could end with a choice. The chaos could become home, that monsters could love with enough intensity to make it worth staying in the fire. Dominic's eyes opened, found hers in the morning light. "You're thinking loud again," he murmured. "Sorry." "Don't be. I like knowing what's happening in your head." He pulled her closer. "What are you thinking about?" "The future." "Specific or general?" "Ours?" He kissed her forehead. "And what does our future look like?" Elara smiled. "Complicated, messy, probably dangerous." "Sounds about right." He sat up, pulling her with him. "Coffee?" "Always." They moved into the morning routine they'd developed. Coffee and breakfast and the news playing in the background while they prepared for days that would be completely different but end the same way, together, in this penthouse, making it work. Elara's phone buzzed, a message from her project manager about the Riverside building. She answered while Dominic made calls about negotiations she didn't ask about. Their worlds. Separate but connected. It was working, not perfectly, but enough. And enough, Elara was learning, was sometimes all you could ask for. She looked at Dominic across the kitchen island, at the man who'd rearranged her entire life and somehow made it better even through the chaos. In a year, he'd ask his question, and Elara realized, watching him pour her coffee with the same precision he applied to everything, that she already knew her answer. But he'd asked for a year, so she'd give him one. Give them both one. To prove that what they'd built from falling and catching and choosing could survive beyond the crisis that created it. And when the year was done, when he asked his question in whatever way he chose to ask it, she'd give him the answer they'd both been building toward since the night she'd fallen into his lap. Yes. To the complicated, messy, dangerous future they'd chosen together. To the empire built on violence and protection and love that defied every rule about how it was supposed to work. To falling and being caught and learning that sometimes the most dangerous choice is the one worth making. She didn't say any of this out loud, just drank her coffee and smiled and let the certainty settle into her bones. In a year, everything would change, but it had already changed the moment she'd fallen. Everything since then was just them catching up to what they'd already decided. And in a city that never forgave weakness, Elara Vance had learned the most important lesson of all. Sometimes strength looks like surrender. Sometimes safety requires danger. And sometimes the only way to build a life worth living is to fall into the arms of someone willing to catch you and burn the world down to keep you safe. She'd fallen. He'd caught her. And together, they'd built an empire from that single moment. This was their ending, their beginning, their choice. And it was enough.